Welcome back to TFC GE 2025 special. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut.
And I'm Adrian, LinkedIn top noise author.
Has it become your identity?
It has. I tend to lean into it.
Why?
Funny is nice.
Yeah, funny is nice. Yeah. So you've been following all the memes, essentially.
It's very hard not to. And we'll touch a bit about that later.
Yes. Today's panel are the important ones. So the first few days, all warm up. Right now, we are entering the big discussion, which is housing and healthcare. Right, both very, very big, front and center of people's mind. And we are very happy to be joined with two experts. Would you like to introduce yourself for our audience that don't know you? For some reason.
Okay, my name is Ern Sir. I'm a sociologist. I used to be with FASS, but now I'm with the Institute of Policy Studies. I see myself more as an academic and as a somewhat informed citizen. So in other words, I don't really think very much in partisanship term, but I try to be objective, try to think in terms of principles.
You think you're just an informed citizen, or are you informing citizens? You write so many things, publish so many things.
Well, I hope to inform too along the way. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So later we'll talk a little bit more.
Okay. All right.
More about housing, healthcare, everything up your alley. Yes. And Alex, for audience that don't know you.
Hi, I'm Alex, former regulator, former CFO and chief actuary of insurance companies, now an independent actuarial consultant. For those who don't know what actuaries
That was what I was about to ask. Yes, for those who don't know.
For those who don't know, right? Most actuaries in Singapore work within the insurance ecosystem. So they set the price of the premium that you pay and determine how much reserve need to be set aside to ensure that when you make a claim, eventually you get paid. But I think that's the more narrow interpretation of what actuaries do. What, in the wider sense, we actually help people to quantify uncertainty and risk into financial terms so that you know when you make decision, what's the financial implication of it so that you can make more sound and more informed judgment.
Okay, awesome. Right. And like we said, today is going to be the big ones. And shout out to our friends on Instagram. Once again, I want to repeat to you that the optimal consumption experience
is on YouTube.
Yes. Right? So we got a whole setup on YouTube. Go to YouTube. If not, you want to stay on Instagram, it's also okay. But go to YouTube. That's what
as long as you watch us.
Yeah, as long as you watch, you stay with us. Okay, so that is awesome. Maybe for a start. Okay, so just to lay the ground, we're going to break this into two parts. The first hour, we're going to focus on the healthcare plan, right? To look at all the different parties, also try to look at what is the situation now, have some sort of a thought around what's going on, what's the ideal state, and have that discussion. And then similarly for housing, we'll do it at a later hour, okay? But for a start, as with every day that we go live, gossip a bit, just as part of the GE fund, so what has caught your attention, over the course of the past few days? Maybe anybody want to take a jab at it?
Well, maybe I start with me not really understanding the angst of people at Workers' Party when they don't contest in Marine Parade.
I also don't get it.
Yeah. Because actually I see it as really a litmus test on whether people are true supporters of Workers' Party opposition or not. Because if you look at the role of the MP that we elect, they do two things, right? First, they do the municipal stuff, the local, taking care of your estate, right? The other is going into the parliament and advocating for policies and changes, right? For the municipal stuff, right? Recently, I stopped hearing about friends around me that when they stay in opposition ward, it is very different from PAP's ward. It doesn't happen that much anymore. So actually the main difference is what they do in the parliament now, right? And if you're a true opposition or Workers' Party supporter, then you actually want more of them in parliament. And, it's very hard to canvas for resource, whether is it human or financial resources. You just trust the judgment of WP. If they think that contesting 26 seats is the optimal way to get most of them into parliament, you just support them, right? Don't have to be so angry.
I mean, that's your platform, right?
Right.
Then,
yeah. And also for the fellow opposition parties who are also very angry, then I'm also very puzzled because, we run a first past the post system.
Yeah.
The math is there. You have to respect the math, right? Then entering into four corner fights. Okay, if you think that by doing four corner fights and given the math, it brings you closer to your policy position, then well and fine, stay in the race, right? But if it does not, then I don't understand what you're doing, right? Yeah, and if you can't even respect the math, then how do I trust you to manage all the financial situation of the country?
Fair. And I'm actually very surprised that the media spends so much time on that. I was like, we did our first live, right? We had that for 5 minutes, then we're done. It's like, every party has the right to decide where they want to contest. They have made their critical decisions and they made their calculus. The PAP also shift ministers around. They're all making their calculus. Right? You compete to win. They all want to win.
Correct.
If you don't want to win, that also be weird, lah. It's like, what are you doing here, Calafare, is it? Right? So they made their calculus. It is what it is. Move on. Right? Okay. Fair. And Ern, what about you?
Well, actually, my sense is that I think this election is sort of taking too long.
Taking too long.
Wow. Actually, I'm feeling a bit tired also. It's like,
no, because even last year we were talking about election date, right? And then at first we were talking about June, May, and then September, and then here we are, right? After so many months, right? But my sense is that, in a long season like this, right, you got a lot of people coming out of the woodwork, and then usually you get the more chatty, loud ones who throw in their views, right? I'm not saying whether there's a right thing to do or not, but the thing is that you give people an opportunity to actually voice those kind of opinion. And my sense also is that I think there seems to be a lot more polarization. I know we think of America as polarized, right? But I think there's also some degree of polarization here because people are talking past one another. All right. So, and the two sides can never convince one another at all. And that's in the nature of things. So I hope that at some point there can be some kind of consensus at the end of the election and beyond that.
Okay, fair.
I think this aspect was somewhat mentioned in one of our previous episodes because social media, there's a good side, there's
feels
also
like
the
a
bad
bit
side.
drag on, that's so extreme,
It overwhelms you. It educates you, but it overwhelms you. And at the same time, it just keeps showing you the same thing over and over again. And naturally, society just become very polarized.
But any fun ones? They're all very serious ones.
My fun one, my fun one is still the debate about, I did not move from here to there. I did not shift. It's a walkover. I said 3 times already. That one is like, oh my god. You don't understand. I said 3 times. I don't have to say in Cantonese. I'm not sure if you know the reference.
I don't know.
You don't know. So that was mentioned by Tan Ling. When he was asked why he also shift from Marine Parade out to somewhere else. So to him, it's not shift. It's a walkover. So I never shift. So that kind of logic is like, wow.
No, I to be fair, I think both sides are trying too hard on this thing.
Exactly.
Right? Same with Ong Yi Kang and Sembawang, right? And say Jishun Juan, and then Paul came here and said, hey, you also shift around, you're from Aljunied, shift. So to me, it's like, let's move past this kind of lame, like 小朋友 type of like battle, right? It's like, I don't friend you, it's as good as that, right? And that's my point of view. Like, you want to do some negative politics, right? At least be a bit more sophisticated. This is a bit too kiddish in my point of view.
I think nowadays, people are just intelligent enough to discern whether it's mudslinging. And if you say this, then what about that thing that you did? And once we see through this and we have a negative connotation of it, whatever else you said, which is legit, we cannot hear it.
Yeah, fair. So I think we objectively should move on from this. Yes. So you got something to say?
No, I think there's, of course, you can spin it things any way you want. So whatever you say, there will always be a counter challenge, And so,
especially these days when everybody can have a voice, right? Like look at Saturday after, we are here doing this thing. Everybody can take up some mics and put up content on. I mean, we're not just every random people, but it's the barrier entry is so low these days, right? So whatever you can say, someone else can say, right? So if you're not consistent, you're just waiting to be called out, right? So maybe for me, the only fun one was Dr. Paul Tambaya, right? So I think in one of his recent rally, he was wearing like stuff, right?
It was so.
Wow, it was like, and then somebody in the comment section was like, "Wow, he looks like a cardinal." It's a lot of things, And I was like, yes. So I had to bring it up today. And also bring up Dr. Paul because I think in part of our healthcare discussion, the STP does have a very different plan compared to everyone, which we will go into that later. So beginning our discussion, maybe I would like to open the floor. Of course, primarily Alex, right? So and this is your profession. What is your read on the current healthcare, situation in Singapore?
Okay, I think the ground view is probably when they look at the escalating cost of medical treatment and things like that. Whether are you paying out of pocket or buying insurance, right? The cost seems to have run away, especially when you have to support your parents.
Everything feels like it's ran away.
Yeah.
But this one feels quite bad.
It feels quite bad. So I actually would point, the worry is true, right? It's not sustainable for it to continue to rise at this pace. But I think I would trace the root cause to us being given the wrong impression of how much or how good a quality of healthcare that we can actually afford. Okay, let's take the experience that most people may have, right, when they buy private health insurance, right? When they're supposed to do needs analysis to see whether you can afford the plan or not. Oftentimes, that discussion is about, okay, what's your current salary, and then what's the current price that you have to pay at your current age, right? So that's why when fast forward a few more years when the premium continue to increase, right, based on age. So naturally, when the admission rate into hospital increases around 4% per annum before age 65, increases at 6% per annum after age 65. So you can already expect that natural gradient to move up like that. And average length of stay for those in retirement is usually double that of the working adults. So it's a natural progression. So it's already expected. The more responsible financial advisors would actually flip further into that disclosure and say that, okay, Reggie, you are age 40, right? So the cumulative premium based on this table until age 90 may be, let's say if you buy a private plan with rider, maybe 400,000, right? right? But but the more responsible one would tell you that, but this is the current rate table.
Yes, I know.
Right? It's not unimaginable that the medical inflation may increase by 3 to 4% per annum. Let's pick 4% per annum. So given that rate, your cumulative premium until age 90 would actually be 1.7 million. So do you still want to buy your private plan with rider? If the rep has been responsible and tell you this story, then you may not have outright pick the private plan with rider. The question is, what proportion of the reps are doing that for the customer? And when they're not doing that, is there any scrutinies or compliance check or enforcement by regulators and things like that? And that I'm not close enough to the situation, so I don't know. But from the ground, those people who felt very disgruntled that they are forced to drop or downgrade their plan, then probably there's significant amount of people that are not getting the complete advice.
Yeah.
I have two questions for you, right? I think on one hand, as you talk about all these rising costs, right, you find that, in fact, there are many seniors, I mean, I do not know the exact number, right, who are actually not covered at all, right? So when you talk about the sandwich generation, right, they have to support younger kids in school and all that, right? And they also have parents who are not covered at all, absolutely. So in other words, if they happen to suffer some chronic illness or serious illness, who's going to pay for it, right? So my question next is, is MediShield Life enough to take care of those big amount?
I would say yes. If you pick B2 or C ward, right? Because I wouldn't say it's not covered because everyone is covered by MediShield Life. So if you choose to stay in B2 and C ward, it's actually quite sufficient. The case in point would be my dad passed away last year. He had a 1 full month stay in Tan Tock Seng, B2 ward.
B2.
Yeah, and the out-of-pocket is not excessive. It's fairly manageable.
So we're not talking about the hundreds of thousands?
It's low 5 digit.
Okay.
It's fine. But if you want more comfort, want to be in single room, want to have that more aircon, more privacy, then yes, it becomes significantly costly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because one of my concerns about the sandwich generation is that if they're going to pay at both ends, right? High cost for education, high cost for healthcare, right? I mean, where are they going to find the money?
Of course.
They might end up in poverty, in some way, to put it in extreme sense.
But given that there's a cheaper solution already, wouldn't it just be a way to solve it by lowering your expectation?
Yes, and I think that needs to be done. But if done too drastically, we also have a capacity issue, right? So if suddenly everyone downgrades to restructured hospital, right, and the demand for restructured hospital suddenly jump, we may not have enough bed, and it sort of worsen the bed crunch, right? So there's a slightly more urgent need to build more and more public hospital, I think.
Okay, yep. So just to move that conversation, right? Essentially, where you're thinking of at this point in time is really at the insurance premium level. And
it's not just that. That false sense of affordability also comes after you have purchased the plan. Let's say if you have purchased the plan with rider, right, and especially those that give you cashless experience, right? You just go into the hospital, they'll serve you very well. Since it's all paid for anyway, you don't mind taking more comfortable services or maybe stay a day or two more just to recuperate. You won't mind. And you won't check the bill, right? Yeah. And from the provider angle, if no one is challenging my bill, I will just bill you, right? So it sort of leads to the escalation, you see. So if people actually started with a lower plan that they can actually afford, right? And let's say if they don't have a rider, they actually have to pay a fair bit of out of pocket. Then they will start to have a scrutiny on the bill, and they will be able to tell their provider to say that, okay, actually I cannot afford that much. I only get treated up to this point, right? And then I think the overall healthcare spend of the country would naturally reduce, and also the margin for the providers will also naturally get back to a more reasonable level.
Fair.
So that's why one of the key points that I quite agree in the SDP healthcare policy is that because basic healthcare is a human right thing, right? No one should be excessively profiteering from this.
Okay.
Right. But at the moment, there's the check and balance on the margins that different stakeholder takes from in the chain is actually quite unchecked, I would say.
Okay. Actually, can you expand for us a little bit, like what's the margins that everybody is making? Because I think for a lot of our regular audience, right, they may have a little bit understanding of like insurance premiums and different products types, but there's a whole complex back end of fulfillment, right, which is your hospital, your drugs, all those things. Can you kind of paint us a picture?
But since actuaries work with insurance company a lot, so let me start with talking about the insurance companies. So based on the statistics published by MAS, right, between 2014 to 2023, the average profit margin for the whole private insurance industry was just 2%. So there's a lot of demonization of the insurers profiteering from the system. Actually, not 2%. If you look at also the cost of capital angle, the shareholders are basically earning 8 to 10% on their investment, right? So it's what you would expect as an equity investor anyway, right? So I think it's a fair margin to look at. Actually, when MAS published the 2024 stats, and you do the recalculation of the rolling 10 years profitability, chances I'm guessing that you end up seeing a zero or a negative margin. So basically, your insurers are doing social service for you already. So they're not really the demon, but because they are the one that is rejecting your claim sometimes, so you kill the messenger, right? So
just to be clear, that is the insurance company, right? The
issuer, the shareholders.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So then, with every dollar of private insurance premium that you pay, right? Just now we say 2 cents went to the shareholders, right? Close to 80 cents to $1, 78 goes to paying the claims, right? To pay the salaries and rent of the insurer operating the business, around 8 cents to $1, and your distributor get 12 cents to $1. So it's really for the public to say that whether you feel that this is a reasonable split or not.
So the agents make quite good sums lah.
And their lead and the upline basically.
Okay.
So there's always the encouragement to upsell.
Yeah. That's a different discussion.
That's
for another time.
Next podcast.
For next podcast. Yes. But on the hospital part, right? Because I think that's a big part of the overall cost structure of healthcare, right? Yeah. So you're saying that 78 cents, to about 80 cents go there, right?
Yeah, and the margin I think for most hospital groups is around 8 to 10% profit margin. But if you re-express it as a return on capital or return on investment, therefore it won't be 100%, right? So therefore it would jump to maybe 30-40%. So as an equity investor, it's
amazing.
Very amazing.
Right?
Same level of margin for the pharmaceutical companies.
Okay, so that's where we need to compress it. No.
So this
is the discussion.
A lot of the times it's based on your affordability, your ability to pay. So the way that many pharmaceutical companies price their drugs is like how, let's say, your FIFA price your broadcast, right? The richer countries pay more.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, when you ask some of the people who work in the pharmaceutical industry, they will say that, it's fair if you don't have the richer people paying for this development, the mankind would not get this solution. And
so elevated.
Yeah. So everyone suffer, right? Yeah. But the question is, therefore, do we see ourselves as a country as rich as the States, where they are subsidizing the bulk of the R&D cost, right?
Yeah. That's a different discussion.
Yeah,
but I understand what you mean. Okay, so with that as the backdrop, right? And I think for Singaporeans, or at least for my view is for most Singaporeans, when it comes to healthcare, right? Of course, everybody want like as affordable as possible, as good a coverage as possible, as quality a service as possible, right? That's what everybody will want, right? Nobody wants escalating prices. The housing one, that's a different discussion. That's for later. But healthcare, I think everybody want all these lah, right? So more affordable, good quality, efficient, and all that, right? So with that you've laid down the current situation, and with that as I would argue the unified goal of everyone, let's take a look at some of the manifesto ideas that people have lah. So I think the easiest way to start is to start with PAP's one, okay? Because PAP essentially governs, and the whole system set up in their ideas, right? So we start with theirs and then use that as a reference to evaluate everyone else, okay? So these are some of the healthcare plans that the PAP have in the manifesto lah, okay? So a few major things. One is to increase healthcare facilities, which they have been talking about for a long time. So whether is it the one in Yishun, Kotek Puat, right? And all the way going forward, there'll be new hospitals, Alexandra and all those. So essentially increasing capacity, right? Increasing beds, about 13,000 beds in the next 5 years. That's what they say. And then, of course, to continue adjust some of the Medisave, Medishield kind of thing, but it's very tapering,
Very
not
tweaking,
much, right? Very tweaking, which I would argue the other party are also just tweaking, so the few big things would be expanding healthcare facilities, growing the nursing workforce, and then of course continue to move ahead into the prevention, healthy, active SG, type of thing, which I think is great. That part I think is very good. Yeah. So what is your take on this? Like, do these major strokes actually solve the existing struggle?
It would help to keep things in check.
Okay.
Right. But of course, all this will still not address the point about margins that we talked about earlier. Right. It will just keep the pace, not accelerating even further.
Okay.
Right, increasing bed capacity and all these are all fair, right? In fact, the Medishield repricing last year, right? I think it's also good in the sense that it keeps the premium the percentage of the bill that is paid for by the Medishield Life within that 90% target. So I think it's a good recalibration. Yeah. So the question is now how all these things that they are doing interact with the private healthcare and private sectors, private insurance space.
Okay. Can you paint us some picture there?
So you are seeing a bit of a trend there. Last month, I think MOH and CPF board worked together to come up with this health insurance planner that you can log into CPF website to see, okay, what is actually the premium that you have to pay for the next 30, 40 years if you stay with your current plan, with or without rider you can choose, and assuming what is your future income like. So it gives you that reality check that I just now talked about, what you really afford. And if you find that you cannot really afford, then what adjustment you want to make. Either you work harder to earn more or you downgrade your plan or maybe both, right? But having that sense of what your real affordability, I think is important. It's a good step forward. So we will just now wait and see how the population react to this latest information that they are presented.
Okay, so just to be very clear, so essentially the plan that PAP has at this point in time, it's not going to structurally change anything. It's just kind of like keeping up with the situation. It's just kind of like how you continue to build more MRT lines because the population keep growing and more people need to stay. It's not going to really adjust the way things are. It's just kind of like, okay, this will be how things are.
Actually, the point about giving people awareness of how much they can afford actually is not in the manifesto, but they're already doing.
Yeah,
but I think that is likely to have more impact than those stuff.
Okay. I mean, there's also the cancer drug list, right, which was even earlier, where essentially they try to draw a line on like, okay, these are the drug pricing that we will do and then manage from there, right? And I think I had a chat with some of the oncologists and they say it's effective, right? So prices have all come down. Essentially, just you draw one line, everybody move in the line, right? So those things are happening, lah.
Correct.
Okay.
I think it's also important. I mean, even as you talk about affordability, that we pay what we can afford, right? But it has to be quality healthcare, lah.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that just because you are paying less or you can't afford to pay more, the quality has gone down, right? I think it should be of certain standard, right? Because I understand that in some system where you have free healthcare, right? But actually, those who are on free healthcare actually don't get very good quality services, right? Or maybe if you need an operation or surgery or something, it's quite urgent, but you don't get it till like X number of months ahead in the future, right? So I don't think that's what we have in mind.
Yeah.
So affordable, but also quality, right?
Of course, yeah.
So the prevention aspect actually is really the key
Yeah.
here.
That too, yeah.
And that is appear to be the only thing that, or rather the thing that only PAP seems to have, which is on the healthcare SG. Of course, trying to re-emphasize doubling down on that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because in the medical profession, they actually say that it's actually a mislabel to say that these are healthcare costs. It's actually sickness care costs. All this spending on hospital and all this is to fix things. The healthcare cost is mainly if you want to maintain the health, it's the preventive stuff that you do. That spending is the genuine healthcare cost, right?
Yeah. So once again I want to repeat that Active SG is doing a good job. Really, the gyms are getting better, right? So but even then, structurally, this is still a growing problem, right? Because the the margins are still there, and cost is still moving up for a lot of people. So as much as some of these plans look sound, but truth of the matter is the people are still feeling the pain. Right? And I would argue that these few are the main things, right? So healthcare, housing, education, these are the biggest pains, right? And when some people talk about transport, utilities, all that, right? I'm not saying that the mass does not feel the pain, but sometimes I feel like you're just arguing for the things that are easiest to solve, or you feel like you can get a direct impact. But if you look at anybody's Rolodex, right, you look at their balance sheet, 最贵的 is these few things, right? Housing, healthcare, education, and they tend to be very complicated in the structure that has been set up. So that's why we want to talk about it, right? So maybe any last things to add on?
I think we haven't said very much about Healthier SG, right?
Yeah,
I thought it's a pretty good system, right? Because you go and see your GP, and then they charge you a pretty small sum. I heard that actually GP don't make a lot of money from Healthier SG, right?
Oh, I have no clue.
And also you have all the information, on their database or platform, and I think that's very helpful because you can go anywhere and the doctor will know what you have been up to, right? Or what have you seen, what are the allergy and things like that,
I heard the GPs all got scooped. There's a period of time GPs were making good money, and then this thing came.
There's some kind of price control.
It's some form of price controls to try to tell you, okay, you can make money, but control yourself. So then these things.
But I believe that at the community level, it is very helpful.
I think so.
To have
I think so. It's not always about profits.
And rather than people, the moment they're sick, they have to go and run to A&E or something, right? Or even the polyclinic, which tends to be quite overcrowded anyway.
Yeah.
I just recently signed up for it, so there's a lot of preventive information you can find on it. I always have trouble trying to find out when should I go for my flu jab and all that, and everything is in there.
Okay.
It's really great information.
One more step, I feel like MOH need to sponsor it. so before we got it, okay, so I give credit to all these ideas, right? But because we want to discuss some of the other policy plans, right? So maybe we can kind of expand to look at some of the other parties, which as we have laid down from the start, SDP is the quote unquote the furthest, a different one, right? So let's just kind of go through Workers' Party and PSP first. So broadly speaking, right, Workers' Party and PSP wants the same thing, right? And the broad strokes is they all want to expand the type of care that is within the system. Right, so whether is it dental, mental, fertility, like it's just about allowing the people to claim more of this type of new age care maybe okay. I don't know how else to put it, okay, but it's just trying to expand the suite of cares, and then once again similar to PAP wants to tinker the subsidies across the board, right? So it's just everybody wants to tinker different things, but it's all just tinkering in my worldview, right? And I think the only variance would be that there's some sort of allowing Singaporeans to use MediSave, a little bit like more of MediSave. In fact, I think Workers' Party and PSP both want to allow Singaporeans to use more of their MediSave, right? And what are your thoughts on that?
The question is, okay, you give that flexibility, so the MediSave balance will deplete faster, and when that runs to zero, then what? That part, the then what was not explained. So therefore, if it means more government funding, more subsidy, then I always go back to the question how you plan to pay for it, right? So I think among the different manifestos or policy papers, I think only SDP is the one that actually tried to quantify how they are going to pay for it, right?
Yeah. Any thoughts when you read it? Or?
I did some research into, of course, SDP policy because they are arguing for the.
I love how we just write off the other two. No, but I think just to sum up that part, right? Because truth of the matter is, it really does not look very different. And I think that's not to write off all the other parts of their manifesto, because I think in retirement, in housing, the WP, PSP, they all have more interesting ideas, which we will go to later in the later segment. But in healthcare alone, it really doesn't look like it's too innovative. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, correct.
Right. It's just like change here, change there. Everything sounds good, but not really. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm sweating.
and I think the fixation is there because Dr. Paul is there. So you would imagine that his idea will be more well thought out, with more substance, and he has been arguing for single payer for the longest time.
Yes.
And I did some check on this, and it is really radically very different. It's almost dismantling the entire system.
It's a
right
whole
now.
different imagination. So Alex is the right place to share with us a bit more because he said it's good, well thought through, right? So maybe give us an idea, like what is the SDP healthcare plan?
I think the central idea is, of course, more redistribution, but also to keep the whole system as efficient as possible. And they don't believe that anyone should be overly profiteering from healthcare because that is basic human right. Right. So that principle, I agree. Right. So by having the central payer to buy all the drugs for both the public and private sector, you have a better negotiation power. By also having standard formulary, standard drug list, so that similar conditions are treated in a standardized way, it reduces the variation and associated admin costs around that. I think all those are fine. I think for the masses, it is okay. But I do caution that there would be a downside, but it may not be for the mass, for the downside, right? Taiwan also run a sort of universal healthcare system, right? And they have like 20 jianbao. They have 20 million population, right? And when they want to do single payer, some drug company would say that, oh, if you're going to press my margin until so low, then I'm not offering the drug to your country, right? So for the masses, probably it may still be okay, but maybe the top decile may say that, oh, by moving to central payer, now I lose access.
No worries. They can do medical tourism in Thailand. Bangkok will gladly
Bangkok will love you.
Bangkok will be like, hello, 2-train program here, just come.
Glad that it doesn't have to come from my mouth.
Sorry.
It's okay. I prefer that.
But that is what
that would be the consequence,
right? And that's what a lot of the wealthy people are already doing, right? If they cannot get the care that they want where they are, they will go to somewhere else to do it, right? And I do believe that broadly in the Singapore system, as much as we do welcome the rich to be based here, to like run business here, put their wealth here, we don't always structure things, with them as a top of mind lah. Like like the whole everybody in housing, maybe we will come to that. Nobody talk about condo at all, zilch, right? So it's like our public infrastructure and our public discourse in policy making still mostly revolve around most of the people and not like not that small little decile at the top lah.
So I think the trade-off is fair, especially with technology. It doesn't mean that medical tourism, when the patient go to a foreign country to get treatment, you cannot do part of the consultation remotely, right? So the existing doctors who are serving this clientele can still be largely based here and just fly over maybe for a week or so to just do the major ops and whatnot. It's fine, right?
So outside of that, has it worked well for Taiwan so far?
Their problem is because it is nationally determined premium rates, and the political pressure is super strong that you can't increase the premium, and because everything is free, so people would just over consume. So they're marching towards bankruptcy.
Okay. So did the STB plan then try to manage this situation?
Well, in a sense that they still think that, okay, there will be a fair bit of funding from taxes, but they still think that an insurance scheme, some skin in the game for people is still in order. But they also feel that for older people, when they have retired and no longer have a strong income, they shouldn't be made to pay an escalating premium. So their idea is to get the younger people to subsidize the old, so that when the young people become old, then the next generation will transfer to them, right? That logic actually only works if the fertility rate holds up, right? Right? Or not just hold up, it has to go back to the replacement ratio. Otherwise, that train wouldn't.
Okay. Just to be clear, from a user experience standpoint, it actually means that I lock in the rate, then I lock in the rate, right? I do not, like, my rates do not escalate.
No, it will still escalate by inflation, but it won't escalate so much by age.
I know now. Now it's the exponential one. That's an expo curve.
Both compound, both age-related and inflation-related.
Okay, fair. So, which is why, because the older people have a much higher propensity to require, this kind of like healthcare or sick care, right? And so essentially, in the system, the younger people are subsidizing the older people.
Correct.
Not that you're actually subsidizing, but it's an overall system kind of situation, right? Yeah. And so just now I saw you have a reaction. It's like,
Yeah, I think there's a parallel here like, in terms of the social security, right? In some country, right, where you put in, as you work, you put in the social security payment as you work, right? On the go. But by the time you are retired, there may not have enough funds, because there just aren't enough young people putting in money. I believe that is also sort of happening in China, right? And because of that, they need to extend retirement age. They need to do a number of things, right, so that the system will not go bankrupt.
Okay.
Yeah, so our bottom line here is that whatever you do, like, must be sustainable.
Yeah.
I mean, you can talk all you want, right? But where's the money coming from?
Okay.
So the healthcare issue is essentially a fertility issue.
Yeah. I mean, in the SDP plan, essentially.
Actually, a very good point. Actually, it's not only a fertility issue, right? In education, okay, unpopular opinion alert, right? Trigger alert. In education, we now try to tell people, okay, there's no single way of success, right? Why can't we also discuss that there's no single way to single definition of what's a good life? Let me ask you all, do you all enjoy fireworks?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't? Okay, so for those who enjoy fireworks, right, it's short, bright, keep people's motivation or enjoyment level up. Why can't someone look at their life or prefer their life to be like firework? I don't need a very long life, right? So long as I have shine bright for the people around me, make everyone, give them value, contributed value to people around me in my life, is good enough. I don't need constant drive for a longer life. But at the moment, all the narrative is always live longer, healthier, and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
You probably need to give people who have a different perspective of what is a good life, right? That choice, right, to live the way that they want, right? I see there's recent talk about or recent news article about people doing living funeral, right, when they get cancer, right? They manage to have a gathering with the loved ones before they pass on, right? And I think that's a very beautiful way to end. So if people are given a chance of doing that and then followed by a dignified assisted suicide, I think it helps, right? So that also, first, it reduces excessive demand on healthcare at the older age, which is very expensive and whatnot. And some more, if it's going to be subsidized, it will lead to increase in tax revenue and whatnot. So by allowing people who don't need too long a life to have their choice, it's a win-win situation.
No wonder you put the trigger alert in
Very
front.
triggering.
Because this is not the popular dimensional
Yeah.
thought in today's landscape. Right?
Yeah,
but I know what you mean from a...
But I'm pro-choice.
Yeah. I understand what you mean.
Especially in the past 2 years, my dad passed from cancer. My mother-in-law passed from cancer. My mom started to now show signs of dementia. I really don't want to live like that. Right? I don't want to create that burden for my dependents like that.
I went through the same thing. My mom was also on dementia, and she survived for another 1 year plus.
Yeah.
And the quality of life is zero, is absolute zero.
Yeah. So I don't want my daughter to experience that, and I probably want her to remember me in my healthy state, so that at least I say a nice goodbye and I leave. Right? I see that as very poetic and beautiful, but I'm not given a choice.
Okay, fair.
I think these conversations are already going on, right?
Yeah.
In Singapore society, but I think people are still, of course, a bit, don't really want to talk too much about it, right? I have actually written something about a good enough life, but it's not about euthanasia and all these things, right? It's more about maybe instead of trying to say that we must all, this might lead us to housing also, we must all cross over to private housing. We must all possess a private car, all right? Can't we live more simply, okay? And to me, more simply means maybe living in a 4-room flat, still enjoying government subsidies and support benefits of all sorts, right? And then you have more disposable income, to do other things like, family gathering, going for holidays, why not? Rather than, every month you're trying to pay mortgages, and this could be like the next 20 years or 30 years.
Yeah, and you max out. Yeah.
So what's wrong with living in public housing, 4-room flat, and
and I know
and it's very comfortable.
And I know some of your research indicates that actually people are quite happy with living in the flat, right? Yeah. So hold on to that. We will get there after the break, right? But I want to kind of go back to you on the discussion of between SDP and the rest, right? Essentially, you did say that, but before we went live, right, there's actually like a spectrum to look at this whole thing, right? Whether is it individual responsibility to a shared communal responsibility. Can you kind of lay that for us so that our audience get a better sense? Of course, I have to be very fair. The STP plan is damn long, right? So you gotta go and download if you are truly interested to evaluate it for yourself, and download the PDF is very very thick.
You need to do a lot of reference.
Yeah, must do a lot. Must do homework. If not, you can ask Paul, Dr. Chi. Yeah, I'm sure they're very glad to answer you. But maybe give us that thought process.
Well, I guess not just for healthcare, but for all the policies that's presented in the manifesto, right? There's always a range of position that people imagine the society to be. At one spectrum is everyone for themselves. There's not much sharing, right? At the other end is fully communal, right? And in, for example, the healthcare design, the 3M plus S, actually, there's a lot of emphasis on personal responsibility. That's why you have MediSave account. You manage within your own budget how much you have earned and so on and so forth, right? And SDP probably lean a bit more towards the more communal part of that spectrum. And if you lock yourself to that particular degree of redistribution, then what they have designed is actually very tightly knit and robust, right? But of course, after all, this is a democratic society. Not everyone share the view that we should redistribute to this extent. Then there will still be people who want more personal responsibility. Then I think that's where people legitimately can disagree with SDTP's plan. But one of the problem now is that no party has actually come up to say that, okay, if you don't believe in that much redistribution, then what is the alternative robust stack of things that that we should aim for? Right? Of course, save for the incumbent, right? Which what they are doing is the stack that they are proposing.
So,
yeah. But there's no third or fourth alternative that's being presented at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. That is interesting. Okay. Yeah. Any last things to add?
Excuse me.
No worries.
I think we are also trying to, self-reliance is important, but at the same time, as a society, I think it should be balanced by social solidarity, right? In other words, there are many things that an individual cannot do on their own. There are many things that they can do, but there are many things that they can't do, right? And that's where society comes in, right? And I think a good balance, between self-reliance and social solidarity is just critical.
Yeah. And I think we are moving a little bit more to the communal aspect of things already. I mean, that's the narrative that I see brewing. I don't know if that's what you're seeing.
Yeah,
it's also part of the social compact, that whole...
I think post-COVID, that seems to be a lot more prominent.
Yeah.
There are people who are sort of helpless at home, they can't take care of themselves and all that. I mean, COVID sort of exposed the sort of dark side, right, underbelly of society. And there are many who actually need social support. And they are not incapable of self-reliance. And we can't just keep on imposing this self-reliance ideology on them.
Fair. I think today, earlier in the day, in another live stream, I think Dr. Paul talked about this. He said that I think one of his interviewees that came to try to join the program, the school, the medical school, right, said that she actually volunteered and found out that there are a lot of people that are food insecure in Singapore, right? I think like 10 to 15%. It's quite bad. Like you would have never thought, at least I never thought that it would be so bad. I would think okay, there are definitely people that are food insecure. I mean, certain HDB blocks you can see, right? You walk past, what's the situation, and they tend to be hidden inside the estates, right? But you never thought it was that bad, So is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Because I mean, for a longest time, we always talk about being a rugged society, about being self-reliant, right? I mean, as a philosophy, I think it's fine, but the thing is, there is a limit to it.
Yeah, and if we are always just on our own, then where's the together? Right, where's the social compact?
In East Coast.
You know, yeah, say together. It's just hey, go lah. Guy never run already. You know, after the election, I try to get Swikit on. Right, I would love to talk to
Okay,
him.
after all, we talk about community,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And we
yeah,
talk
yeah,
about the nation as a community
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
so,
yeah.
so we are not individuals.
Yeah, yeah.
A bunch of individuals hanging around, you know.
Yeah, fair. And I personally like this. I think we should all move more towards the collective element, but you cannot go all the way and then there's no more individual variance lah. Because then what's the strive to do better, right? But I think this recalibration is happening. You know, on the ground, people want it, and I think even some of the policies you can tell is also moving down that path. It's like all the major parties got the memo. They know what the people want. It's just at which position do they want to take, right? So yeah, thank you. Any last things to add on healthcare? If not, I think we had a good discussion.
Well, I think just back to the healthcare inflation thing, right? I mean, I remember there's one proposal that government should pay for all your shield insurance premium and things like that. And
I think that's the PSP's proposal. Government to pay for CareShield Life and MediShield Life for all.
Yeah, the estimation was 2-3 million a year, but I think again, the math is only about today's price, right? Just now we talk about admission rate increasing at around 4-5% per annum, and then plus inflation. So quite easily that number would double every 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? And that how are you going to pay for that? So
Yeah.
yeah.
So at some point, it is still about managing the profit mechanisms in the ecosystem, right? Which in this case boils down to the healthcare providers themselves, because they take bulk of it and they have a decent margin where they are, and also maybe the distributors.
And in the longer term, healthier SG, such that you don't even need that
don't
much
even need
consumption.
to pay that much, right? Okay, great. I like the discussion. If you have any comments, put in the comment section. Any specific questions, let us know. I know healthcare is not an easy discussion. That's why we put it first. So thank you. We'll take a break and then we'll come back to you at 6. Can? Okay. Meanwhile, I think that's it. Once again, for our Instagram viewers, if you want to continue, go to YouTube. YouTube is for your optimal experience. Yeah. So with that, we'll see you later. Meanwhile, we take 5. Okay. Bye-bye.
Rock the
Okay, welcome back to part 2 of TFC Live, our GE special. Very happy to be here once again, to talk about some of the bigger topics, right? So I think over the course of the next few days, we will have bigger and bigger topics.
Oh,
right?
for sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So just to lay the ground, give you a little bit of a hint on what's coming. So Monday, I think the PSP and SDP will be here. So So we will ask them some of the questions so you can let us know. And then I think Tuesday we are confirming the other parties, right? So hopefully they all come and then we can have a good discussion.
Yeah, we're going to skip Sunday.
Sunday is a relax. Oh yeah, Sunday is tomorrow is Jeremy lah. Uncheck Bitcoin, right? Yeah. So the very iconic fun guy, at this point in time, we will get him, and we tried to get Daryl, right? So another independent candidate, because we thought Sunday do something lighter lah, get independent candidate. But Daryl not very open, so we'll see him after the election, hopefully, But yeah, so Jeremy will be coming tomorrow, and then there'll be the other parties will be coming in next week, and then we will lead towards bigger and bigger topics towards the end. So stay with us, okay? And once again, I want to give a shout out to our live stream partner, Position 5. So they've been supporting us through this whole process, make my life very simple, right? And also the partners at Community and the Golden Nuggets podcast. Yes. So
And for viewers on Instagram, Optimal Experience is on YouTube.
YouTube, yes. And I think the earlier panel and this panel, we will both post-produce onto our podcast. So yeah, stay tuned. You will get to enjoy lah, because we do think some of these things are more pertinent, more important topics, and we want to hold the policy ideas to account. Okay, so yeah, joining me again is Adrian. You want to give for our audience that don't know you.
LinkedIn top noise, author, fractional CMO.
Just to be clear, everywhere you also say you're LinkedIn top noise, right? Don't just stay here,
I know, everywhere.
Okay.
It's publicly available.
Okay, great. And we are joined with Ernst and Alex. For our audience that don't know you, can you just do a quick introduction?
Okay, my name is Ernst. I'm a sociologist and academic, and I prefer to think in terms of ideas and models and principles, rather than very specific things and details.
Yeah. Are you a sociologist or the sociologist?
I wish I am the, but not.
After this episode become the.
After. So there was the Beng Huat era, and then there was your era, right? And then
No, but Beng Huat is really the grandfather of sociology in Singapore. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And that's why
I may be one of the uncles around.
Yeah. So we will go into that in a while. And Alex, for our audience that don't know you.
Hello, I'm Alex, former regulator, former CFO and chief actuary for insurance company. Now I'm an independent actuarial consultant.
Yeah. So how does it feel from a regulator and then now you come out independent? It's like you know the whole thing already.
Well, I think I'm very fortunate in my career, so I get to see both sides of the fence, right? So give me a more holistic view. I think it's good. That's been good.
Okay, that is fun. And in our other podcasts, I think Alex did the whole discussion about healthcare plan and all that. So we had a good discussion. I think it's great to take a look at that podcast, to get a better sense of so where do all these parties stand on their healthcare strategy, right? Because I do think it's an important part of, especially the professional life. You're spending a big bunch goes to that. So you want to know why is it like that? What's going on, right? Can we do something about it? So check out that podcast. In this particular podcast and panel, we want to focus on the housing plan, right? So I think housing is the other big thing.
The most expensive thing in your life.
Yeah. It is. Until you calculate the insurance premium. right. Then you realize, hey, actually, yeah. But I think in the psyche of Singaporeans, housing is front and center, right? A lot of people work very hard to get their home, and even marriage is tied to home, and there's the whole home asset enhancement, the whole spiel for many, many decades, right? And then even leading up to recent times when there's actually Prime Minister Lawrence popped the bubble and said that, no more asset enhancement, if things are 99 years, we'll go to the end. So actually all these are very hot topics, that people care about, and it's changing the whole public housing system, and then it's front and center in a lot of our conversation now, right? So it's also some of the most popular topics on our platform. So yeah, very happy to be here to discuss with all of you. So maybe Answer, you can take a jab at this. So maybe help us understand, right, lay out the land. How are you looking at the situation today with the public housing scheme?
Well, I tend to link public housing to our attempt, right, in Singapore to sort of raise a middle class. essentially you want to be a middle class society, right? A middle class society means that you want to live well, you want to own something, a property, and and also to be able to experience upward mobility. And the fact is that with the kind of public housing system that we have, it actually enable a lot of people to move up the social ladder, right? I mean, personally for me, right, I used to live in slum housing in my childhood.
Humble background.
And then I moved say again?
Humble background.
I'm not standing for election, so it's okay.
Hey, your slum housing a win already. No?
Slum, it's not humble, it's not very humble.
Yeah, I thought people don't care anymore. No, anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that, it allows you to move up, right? And so what's wrong with that? So it's very much in tune with being a middle class society, or one thing aspiring to be a middle class society.
Okay.
And ownership is a good thing, I believe. But of course, along the way, because when you own something, you want to be able to sell it, right? And if you sell in the open market, you get your capital gain or whatever terms you want to use, right? And eventually, it just gets more expensive, right? And so the next generation will tend to, in a sense, suffer, right? Because price has gone up so much. Like years ago, when you buy a 4-room flat, maybe it only costs you like 100,000 or maybe even 80,000, But now, it is at least even
500. Yeah.
BTO is still 400-500. Maybe in some places it could be 700.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of location.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that becomes at one time it's our pride and joy, right? But now I think some people don't experience much joy, when they talk about public housing.
Yeah. Now it feels like a problem, right? Yeah. Well.
But it's a matter of perception. I think it need not be seen as a problem. But of course, if people do experience it as a problem, then we have to recognize that, right?
Yeah.
But with that kind of price tag, it's very hard not to be a problem.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I think HDB also does try to calculate affordability, right? So what do you mean by affordability? It's like X something times your median income, right? And I guess is whether you agree with that calculation or not. But it sounds possible, but some people may say, come on, in the old days, I get it much cheaper, right? But then in the old days, your salary was much lower too.
Yeah. No, but okay. So that is the narrative, right? So I think HDB is going at 5, right? That is the number that they think is acceptable.
Yeah.
Right.
Times 5.
Yeah, times 5. But I think you laid it up for me lah. So the Workers' Party believes that it's 3. Right, so that is the platform that they want to be, and also just to kind of round off that discussion around, olden days you don't make a lot of money, and relative to the housing prices, it's okay, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like in the past, and not too past ago, like 20-30 years ago, mortgages are not that long. People are not taking like 25, 30. Now it's like, don't have 30 years mortgage, don't need to talk, that type of energy, right? So when HDB peddles a narrative that say, oh, no out-of-pocket money, I was like, okay, I get it, no out-of-pocket cash, everything's from CPF. But the idea is the people are taking 25, 30-year mortgages, and the discount rate against your asset appreciation would be massive, because you need to pay interest, right? So how do you kind of square that?
I guess, housing is meant to be housing, right? It means you just stay there and then, and make it into a home, right? As comfortable as possible. But at the same time, it's also seen as an asset, as sort of an investment that has very low risk. Okay? So it is only rational, I think, for people to say, hey, I better invest in this thing, right? Because it's a sure-win kind of situation. But then again, we know that it may not be sure-win, right? Because there's the problem of decaying lease, right? At some point, it's not worth as much as you wish you could get from the open market.
Yeah. And to be fair, I think Prime Minister Lawrence was the one that popped the bubble, right? Because before that, it was the asset enhancement narrative. So it is not to say that during the asset enhancement narrative, there were nobody that lost money, right? But it's just the broad narrative, right? During Chok Tong's period, Senior Minister Goh Chok Tong's period. Emeritus. Okay. During the previous Prime Minister's period, that was the narrative, right? And I believe every politician needs a platform, every leader needs a story. So that was the platform of asset enhancement. And a lot of people bought into that, and that kind of rallied up, right? And of course, the recent rally is not because of him, right? But that narrative stuck through the people, right? Where it's like, oh, just buy only 包价 one, you know, it's like because it translates down to the ground as like, oh, sure win, you know, like, but I mean, we're not saying it is lah, but that's the kind of energy. And
I think at one time people were talking about upgrading all the time, right? I mean, I think in the 80s, in the 90s, it's always about upgrading. And at one point also, in fact, nobody were buying 3-room flat, you know, and the government actually stopped bidding 3-room flat, right? But now we are back to bidding 3-room flat again, you know. So the thing is that, I mean, time has changed. A lot of the, you know, good stuff that we experience, you know, the upward mobility, the upgrading, you know, is slowly being maybe fizzling out or something.
So from your point of view,
or weakening, to put it that way. Yeah.
So from your point of view, essentially, for lack of better way to put it, the social contract has changed, right? You know, between the people and the housing ecosystem, where in the past you can see as a mobility, you know, from that point of view, especially for the middle class, right? But now it just looks like it's a use value, right? Or what the people on the streets would like to call it. It's just use value law. Just think of it as use value, and then you'll be like at ease with it. Right, I know we did a podcast with Beng Hua the other time, and also talk about this. Like, okay, there's a 2-part to housing in Singapore because you allow for resale market. It fetches some sort of volatility in the market, and it has a price, right? So, is that a fair statement to say that it has changed for the people? It's no longer the same.
Well, I think it's like it's a certain trajectory, right? I mean, if you go at this, go down this route, right, this is going to happen. Okay, and of course, for the longest time, I mean, people don't feel it. You know, they actually experience a gain, right?
Quite
but,
shiok,
yeah, I mean, it happens. You see? But the thing is that it comes a time where it's not sustainable anymore, right? So what do you do? So on one hand, we also don't want to pull down the value of of the flats that people are already in, right? And at the same time, we also want to make sure that BTO is affordable. So how do you take care of both ends? Right? You are not going to distort the market in order to be able to make everything cheaper, right? So the only way I think the government has been using is giving out grants, right? You know, so the price remain, right? You keep the price, but then you make it more affordable for people to be able to buy, you know.
Okay, fair. And I think you exactly point out the crux of the matter, right? Is that there is a whole generation of people that is struggling to get on the ladder, right? And struggling in all facets of it, because it's not just no money. Some people, they just don't meet the requirement, you know, and there's a change of, you can call it lifestyle. I think people want to get married later, you know, and I think the high stakes game of BTO, I call it high stakes game because essentially to get the BTO, you must get married and then you must find the right person. Everything stacked together, so it's called high stakes in my worldview. So when anytime something is high stakes, right, it takes a long time to pull the trigger lah. It's not so easy, right? So then the thing get kicked down, right, and it's causing difficulty of a generation, or at least I think my generation and one generation younger, like the younger millennials and the Gen Zs, they are all feeling like this is not real, you know, it's out of reach, cannot be done, right? So there's that. And then the other side of the discussion is that, okay, we want to manage the resale price value in the market, right? So these are two parts, right? One is the entry people, the other side is the exit people, right? You want to manage the resale price so that the generations above of Singaporeans that have dumped their CPF in it, or cannot use the word dump, like put their money, their CPF money in the house, thinking that it will be an asset enhancement. Of course, the narrative has changed, but that is what they subscribed to long before. And we know housing is a long tail thing, right? So, and you want to kind of protect them as a society. You don't want to see the secondary market come down, you know, and it's gonna, you know, be horrible for them, right? So with that as the background setting, you think that the government's strategy of the day is reasonable?
Well, I think over time, in fact, the government have introduced a number of changes, right? You know, like for example, there was a time when people really want to go private, and so what they came up with was HUDC and then you know E. So I think they're trying to cater to all kinds of demographics in Singapore, and then now we're talking about building 2-room flexi, right, to cater to seniors. So you don't see an authority, a government that is just sitting there and then waiting for things to happen, right? They are making all kinds of adjustments along the way over the last 60 years. Right. And right now, I mean, because there's the demand by singles, right? I think they also try to accommodate them, but maybe not far enough, but they do try to accommodate them.
Okay. So that's the lay of the land, right? So we've laid the ground. So let us look at some of the party manifestos, and what do the different.
Alex.
Any thoughts from?
I really think that there's a
you really think the answer say everything already?
Strong need to get people to understand that the price that you pay for a 99-year lease property is really prepaid rent, right? And once you hammer the idea into people's mind, then I think there will be some natural price adjustment. So let's take the 400,000 HDB flat, let's say at entry level. If you convert that into what is the rental terms that you lock in for 99 years, is $340. How is that expensive? It is not expensive, right? But as with many of these private equity or private debt kind of investment, or like Berkshire Hathaway, right, get good yield oftentimes because they have that ability to deploy a large sum. So some people want to show the good deals to them, right? Things that are priced attractively is only accessible to people who have a big lump sum to pay out upfront, right? So I think at the moment, a lot of the problem is accessibility issue. Many of the young people would not have idle cash of 400,000 to stand around to capture this or lock in this good rental deal.
Is that some Bitcoin entrepreneur?
Enough.
Okay. Yeah.
That's like our running gag for the whole season. Okay.
Yeah. So the thing is how to allow people to get onto this train, right? With minimal upfront. I think no cash out upfront is fine, right? In fact, instead of allowing them to borrow and repay on a level basis, you can also structure the loan such that the repayment is on increasing basis of in line with expected salary increase, right? Maybe for young people, you can also allow them a much more favorable loan to value ratio, right? Lower upfront. I mean, I still believe that a lot of these grants, I prefer to see it as investment into the next generation, and we should not be stingy about that.
And to your first point, does it also mean that, because for the longest time, it's always been about ownership, or you should own a home, own an asset, so people will defend the country, that kind of stuff.
Prepaid rent is also an asset in your accounting terms, right? Prepaid expense is an asset. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, right? And the asset appreciation narrative still works in the sense that if the market rental continue to increase, then the rental times the number of remaining period can still increase, right? At least in the front end, right? Of course, towards the tail end, there will be the decay, but the decay is respecting the contract that you have signed, right? You cannot be buying on the assumption that someone would come and save you by negating the contract. That is, you're buying an option. If you're trying your luck, then sometimes you win, sometimes you don't.
No, and I think that's also a part of the discussion because you see the different parties, including the PAP, trying to manage this thing because it is a broken social contract in some level, right? With the asset enhancement narrative that has changed, kind of normalizing back to what a usual 99 years will be, right? So when that narrative has shifted, they are also trying to manage that downside, unhappiness with sirs, with verse, and everybody. So actually it's three part to this housing situation, right? One is the getting the young people on it, making it accessible.
Correct.
The other part is trying to make sure the asset value stays relatively intact. You don't need to be very wealthy, but you don't want anybody to like really kena, big part as a result of public housing, and the last part, you want a kind of like a soft landing for people to exit. If let's say they have a fast decay.
I would put unpopular opinion though. So how much you can rely on the social contract narrative depends on, or there's a limit to it. Just like there's a limit to free speech and whatnot, right? Yeah. You cannot claim social contract to an extent that you ignore legal contract terms that it is 99 years that you have signed.
I agree.
Right. So people have to take some responsibility.
I agree.
How far you extrapolate that social contract narrative.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. But the interesting part is every party is, in some shape or form talking about it, right? In some shape or form. So PAP, through HDB, of course, because they are the ruling party, has talked about verse, but it's very
no details yet.
No details. I'm of the view that it will not work. okay, because you need I think the detail so far is about 70% of people need to agree, and you're not being paid a premium, you're being paid a discount relative to SIRS, right? So like SIRS is the I mean, that's all the details I have, right? SIRS is the fun one that everybody loves. It's like, wow, not bad, I get a nice new place and get some things back, right? So SIRS is the one that everybody like, and then VERS is the one that it's like, so you get less lah, but then you must make sure everybody want it. But if anybody has done an en bloc exercise, it's crazy, right? To get everybody to want to do this together, there'll be the auntie down there say, well, this feel very long already lah, boy. Yeah. And then there'll be the other uncles like, yeah, I bought it because I want to en bloc, So there's all sorts of incentive at play to get 70% of the whole building to come together to take an inferior, reward, right? In that sense, it's very hard.
It's very hard.
So I don't think VERS will work, and I mean, maybe you can fill us in if you have some thoughts, but I'm of the view that maybe that is also why there's not a lot of details that are coming out yet lah. It's like HDB probably still modeling and thinking of what is done, because this thing has been like thrown out there for a while already.
I mean, the likelihood is that it won't be as good as SIRS for
yeah,
sure.
So that's the
even if we follow the SIRS model. But I think we should also recognize that the en bloc thing that was sort of very popular in those days, people see it as still Baypio, right? More or less. I think it works because people were younger, the flats were also younger, and therefore you actually gain, You know what I mean? And you also can afford to move. So even if they say, hey, pay another 40,000, it's no big deal, right? Because you get another 99-year leasehold. So what's wrong with that? But by the time it gets to a more recent time, right, the flats owner are much older and they don't have the cash, the disposable income to be able to put in another 40,000.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And then moving to another flat and that costs more. I mean, how are they going to afford it?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think the solution which I think the government has tried is to now have varying leases, right? So whether it's 30 years, 50 years, 60 years or what. And I think that works fine. I mean, like when you are 80, right? I think 30 years is okay. I mean, assuming that you don't live.
I mean, very changming.
I mean, anyway, life expectancy currently for women it's about 84, 85. For men it's about 80, 81, right? So if you work on that, right? At 80 years old, you get another 30 years, and that is wonderful.
You're fine.
More than enough.
Yeah, of course. And that would essentially normalize the affordability.
And you don't have to pay upfront huge amounts.
Yeah, you don't front load that part.
In fact, instead of just giving people a new flat, say 20-year lease and whatnot, why can't for these older people who may actually enjoy the camaraderie with their neighbor, reimburse or compensate them in kind? So move them to a elderly community where they can live together. I promise to take care of all the living expenses, right, until you pass on.
Sembawang, Sembawang.
Could be,
No, the black and white houses, I know SLA is trying to do some silver co-living over there.
Yeah, could be that. Then you remove all the remaining lease issue, right? Because you promise to take care of the person until he or she passes.
Okay. So I think we are already begun the discussion already. A little bit of color across the board on the different housing plans. So maybe we can continue that conversation about the lease decay element, since we are already high on it, right? So I think the PAP plan, there are two, right? One is the lease buyback. Right, so you don't decay lah. You sell me first, right? Then you shorten that, and then if you really need it, you buy a variable lease, right? 20, 30 year, 30-year flexi flat, right? So that is one method. The other one is the VERS one, which is like not out yet, and I'm of the view that it doesn't work lah. But when HDB launch it, please come, we can talk, okay? And then there's the other one where the WP will suggest a universal buyback scheme. Right, which essentially means you exit back to HDB, or if they were to run HDB, you exit back to HDB, and then what they are saying is they will then use the flats that are being bought back, because the government can hold stock and then reutilize it through some sort of a rental structure, so that you manage your operational costs as you hold stock lah, right? Essentially your negative carry, right? So that's the WP's plan. And then I think for PSP and SDP, they never talk as much about this buyback situation or the buyer of last resort. They are trying to remove the land price right from the start, right? So they have a very different structure, right? So there's that. Any comments on the buyback situation?
Buyback, I think, is always important to allow, especially the elderly to exit and so reap the equity. I think it's fine, right? I think the land cost one, you don't have to do it via removal of the land cost, right? I mean, I talk about allowing young people to get their first BTO, get their first flat in a affordable entry point, right? You can just recalibrate the size of the subsidy to negate the land cost. Because I still feel that having that land cost sort of transparency, right, is still a decent management accounting practice, right? Yeah.
In what sense? Maybe help us understand.
So even if they think that the land cost is high, right, but at least when you sell the new flat to the young people, be it single or young family, right, you may even able to bump up that subsidy big enough to offset the land cost you have charged. But you keep the accounting intact.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't have a strong point of view on that front. And I think the government is really trying to do that, right? The subsidies in the front is quite thick already, right? But I think one thing that you said even earlier in the podcast is the one about escalating mortgage repayment, right? I think that one is not in anybody's manifesto. I think that one is
in fact,
is good.
So carry on that point, right? People may be limited to, let's say, just buying a 4-room flat at the start. But if upfront they actually wanted a big family, by having a more generous support, right, allowing a better loan-to-value ratio, allowing escalating repayment, they may be able to just buy that 5-room flat outright, right? And then after that, they will just stay there forever. So then the mindset will become usage. And the other thing about making this usage front and center is that we may sort of enforce a disclosure regime such that when you sign any whatever sales and purchase agreement, you always are required to insert one clause to say that it's equivalent to rental of how many dollars a month until end of the 99 years. So that people would actively compare that rental amount with the current market price. Up to a certain point, they say that, okay, this annualized amount no longer makes sense. I will stop paying such a high amount for this transaction. So it would have a natural control of the resale price, I think.
Okay, fair. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Echoing something just now that we were talking about, which is the I think these days HDB has found comfort in selling shorter lease, right? And it's not a new discussion. It's been around, and you already see it in the flexi flat. Now I think it's just about, and even you already see industrial land, right? So there are always varying land tenure and lease time, right? So the WP has brought up this idea of 70 years HDB flats, which is not new, but I think what they are trying to say is universal. You don't sell 99, you sell 70, right? So any thoughts on this front?
Well, I think as long as you have a lease, it means that you will decay, right?
At
some point.
No, but I think the difference is that the upfront cost, right? Lower entry, you adjust that.
But my view is that by the time you get there, I think you might feel quite differently, I thought recently in somewhere some people actually bought private housing for 60 years, right? Can't remember the details, and now it's like they only have 5 or 10 years left, and it's going to be zero, even though it's private housing. So I mean, when it's new, you feel okay, you say, hey, another 70 years,
Too
right?
far
But
away.
once you get nearer the date, you may feel quite differently. But having said that, I do agree that upfront, if they can't afford to pay the whole amount, then I think it's a good idea, right? And that may also drive home the idea that it's actually rental for 70 years.
No, but actually, I'm not so keen on the 70-year narrative, though, because let's say if someone at age 20 buy the flat, and what Prof mentioned that the expected lifespan is already near 85, and that's the average. So there's the fair chance of people living beyond 90. You wouldn't want to enter in the discussion of your lease ending before you die. right? So I'm not really in favor of setting it at 70.
Okay. I
So
mean,
a better plan is 80 years.
yeah, it's
It's just to give more support to people to get that 99 year
No,
flat.
I think either way, right? Because either you sell less or you give more so that the person buy more. Either way, it comes back to the same, right? Because you account it for similar way. There's no outside subsidies relative to it, right?
Yep.
So it's a similar accounting. So okay. I mean, a novel idea, but remains to be discussed, right? And then we can see what's there. Because if you push the conversation a bit more, then yeah, maybe 80 years. If most people are buying at 30 years old, 80 is not too bad, right? So that could be something, and then you can kind of like allocate the capital to like your CPF or whatever. Because I do think truth of the matter is, whoever runs the government, they might give you a subsidies to put you on the ladder. They're not gonna give you cash to put inside your CPF. So if you buy a 99-year flat, they can give you the 100,000, 200,000 subsidies to get you on the ladder. But so that still means that you're gonna put a 200,000, into the flat, right? As compared to if you just outright buy less, then you got excess capital you can deploy in another environment, right? So that could also be a thought process. Okay, maybe one other thing that it's a bit more interesting that maybe not usually discussed amongst our community is the ethnic integration policy, right? So I'm sure, Prof, you are the best guy to ask lah. So WP, I think SDP. I'm not sure. I don't think PSP said this, but I think I'm definitely sure WP and SDP has both suggested some sort of a review. Okay, so to be clear, WP suggests to review the ethnic integration policy for resale flats. STB suggests abolish ethnic integration policy. Right. So, do you want to expound on?
Well, I think abolish should be going a bit too far. I think the idea, but I thought the government has actually come up with a plan, right? That if you can't sell, is that the issue? That means you can only sell it to a Malay or to an Indian, right? And therefore you find that the market is really small, right? Yeah. So they say worst case scenario, the last resort is sell it back to the HDB at I suppose at market price, right? So there is some solution for that, but I think the idea of EIP, right? I mean, although you can say that why are we so hung up about race, right? I mean, but the point is we are not really in a post racial world. Right? Race still matter, right? Yeah. So and if you leave people alone, I mean, the chances are they will actually hang out together. I mean, actually, I mean, birds of a feather, So you don't really want that to happen, right? So basically, is to facilitate and to encourage people to mix around, to have more social mixing across racial group. And I think that's a good thing. So maybe someday we may not need EIP, but I think we're not there yet.
But the social mixing still actually makes sense because in a community setting, more kampong spirit, people will still hang around, talk to each other. But nowadays, you go home, you close your door, you lock it. You don't even talk.
Well, I think it requires a lot more intervention, bringing people together. Whether it's community garden or doing projects together. I think the literature would suggest. I mean, sociology literature suggests that you try and bring people together and not just sort of chit chat among themselves, right? But more to get them to do work on common projects. Participation on common projects for the community. Yeah. Right, so it's about doing things together.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not just about bringing people together, because you bring people together doesn't mean that they're going to interact. Okay, or if they interact doesn't mean that they're going to integrate.
Yeah. Okay, fair. And to be fair, I think the newer BTOs, HDB also try to connect them digitally. They got like WhatsApp group and then some people say, "Well, my WhatsApp group very toxic," because very competitive, right? But you and that's a reason why people say good neighbors are hard to come by, right? Because you don't ballot for your neighbors.
Yeah, so you have offline and online,
everything, right? So I think it's
cyber community.
Yeah. And I think it's all kind of like moving down that path, and to be fair to HDB, right, I think they have really updated the way they build flats over time also, right? Even from the way they angle things, like, and all these are like built environment type of
Very deliberate.
yeah, very deliberate. You can
Yes,
see
yes,
the difference
yes.
from the Sterling Road flat all the way until the earlier like Hougang flats or Tampines, the old flats they look a certain way, and then the newer estates there's the garden in the middle, that whole like flow, right? I think that's a fair statement, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's all. Would you say it's all? I mean, you would know, like, is it all geared towards the kind of like social integration and connection?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's not just a place to live, but it's also a place to connect, right? I mean, we don't want neighborhood to be just neighborhood. We want them to become communities.
Yeah. Is it effective now so far based on the literature that
Well,
you
I
see?
think based on evidence, actually, it's working. It is working.
Okay, that's
That people are mixing. Of course, there were times when they think everyone shut the door and then they're just doing their own thing, right? It's not really true, I know. Studies on social network show that actually people are connecting. But of course, still room for improvement, right?
Okay.
I mean, people still do sort of birds of a feather flock together, right?
course,
So we want them to do, the technical term to use, not only do they have bonding capital, right, among themselves, but also bridging capital, right? They used to bridge out to other, to a more diverse kind of network, lah.
Okay. Fair. I hear you. Okay, so maybe we can talk about the elephant in the room, which is the whole like removing land price style situation, right? So this is as we move further and further out from the PAP and WP's parameter, right? So for PSP and SDP, specifically for PSP, I think they want to create a structure where you do not front load the land cost, right? So that means you just pay building cost plus a premium. I think Manwai and Hazel has talked about it in Parliament, right? So you do that, and then when only in a point of sale, when you want to sell, then you pay the land price such that the whole thing then exits into the secondary market, similar to how other flats are, right? So any thoughts on this front?
I think he actually addressed that, right? I think
Yeah.
because for accounting purpose, I think it's good to know, the price of everything, or value, whatever term you use, right? Because if you sort of don't take account of that, then in a way you are, I don't know, somehow I feel something is missing in terms of accounting.
Okay, but accounting sounds a bit. I mean, I'm gonna push you a bit on this, right? So accounting sounds a bit like a professional term, right? But this is the live life of people, right? So I mean, for them to even bring up something like that, it goes to show that for a lot of people, affordability is a problem. Or maybe not everyone, but for a significant part of the community, right, or the Singaporeans, it is a struggle. So I mean, that's why they're kind of like bringing up this idea, right? So, how about we, factor the land costs later? Anyway, if you exit the market, then you do it, right? If not, then essentially the state does not get to monetize, that land through you, right? Because you live in that space, you never exit the market, you will take it from start to end, and then that's the end.
Because in a way, you're telling people, I cannot make it cheaper because of accounting.
Yeah. It's a bit
It's
like,
not really
you know what I mean, Prof? I mean, I don't discount your views.
No, and that's why the government's method is to use grants. That means we need to account for everything, right? Land costs, building costs, whatever costs, right? And then to make it more affordable, we give different sorts of grants. You see. I think that is a more sensible method.
Okay.
And all the discussion about land cost still boils down to whether can you afford to pay for it, right? So all the land cost discussion can be abstracted away. The population don't even have to care about it, right? It's just focused on whether the price, let's say, looking at it from a 99-year locked-in rent terms perspective, does it make sense, right? If it makes sense, then honestly, it's not too expensive, right? Then if the problem is about coughing up in that money upfront, then just solve the problem via a more generous loan terms, that will have solved the problem, and you don't even have to discuss land costs at all, so long as that headline number is correct.
Okay,
Right?
fair. I mean, I hear you. I
Can I just say one more point? Actually, we forgot to talk about CPF, right? Because you see, when the ownership scheme first came out, right, it was paired with CPF. Because without CPF, a lot of people cannot afford anything anyway.
Correct.
All right, so it does help people to pay, right? And I think even currently up to now, right, there are some people who are actually paying nothing every month because it's CPF and maybe I don't know, whatever cash or what, right? So it's a small amount, so without CPF, I think it'd be hard, even in those days, for people to buy a 3-room flat,
Yeah, fair.
In fact, it's a very good point. So just now I mentioned that the long-term rental price that's locked in is actually not expensive. But if people have to, let's say, borrow or use their CPF, then the sense check should also include the loan interest cost, or if you are using CPF money, the opportunity
Accrued
cost of
interest.
not having it invested in CPF.
Yeah.
Such that the whole stack, that gross or total rental cost long term that you lock in is still a fair amount. If it's still fair, then I think the price of the flat is still fair.
So just to so I don't think this is on the different parties' manifesto, but they have said it from time to time that they, at least for PSP and WP, because they have a seat in Parliament, so they have from time to time, or I stand corrected if they don't, but I'm quite sure I remember that from time to time they have suggested the idea of like decoupling CPF and HDB, right? Where essentially, because a big part of the, so it's back to the triangle, right? Of like affordability, and then like we want to protect asset value, and then we want to allow the older people to exit the market in a safe way, right? So there's this part where they're saying, okay, if let's say you decouple it from the flats, and the CPF can run on its own, then it does not carry a snowball risk where at some point, if the property market has a big correction.
No, what does it mean? Does it mean that that means don't allow people to use CPF?
I think,
which is a sort of contradiction, right?
In some ways, I think that's what it means. It means you can either do it two ways, right? Either you don't allow people to use it in CPF, and then just manage the kind of costs from the front, right? In the sense, you can always give out more grants, right, if you want, right? Or you can cap the participation of CPF inside, or you can just outright reduce the price all the way that there's no need for consideration of exploring CPF as a mechanics, right? So that is something that people are talking about, to essentially separate it.
But that logic, they're still trying to tie the house to as investment asset concept, right? Because if you are going back to a long-term use concept, why do you care whether the price go up or go down? I've already locked it in.
Yeah, fair. So now this is the new idea. There is an old system that is happening. You cannot just not care about the old system, right? In that sense. And then this is the kind of evolution of thought that some of the parties are pushing, right? But it looks like it's...
But if that's the case, then to help the transition is to first hammer in this use
of course. Okay.
concept.
I can agree.
And while today the property prices still remain decently high, then you just choose to exit to whichever property that you think would be reasonable for your long-term use. It's a good timing to exit, to do the reset, right? If the economy were to go significantly worse, and you ask people to make the transition there, and then it become more painful.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe we move on to the last one, which is SDP. SDP one is the most like, as with SDP lah, right? But you did say, okay, in our previous podcast, we did talk about the STB healthcare plan to be very rigorous. It's just that there are certain assumptions that maybe the state today is not comfortable to go with, and of course, it's up to you in your.
And also, they have a very strict worldview about this, about redistribution, which not everyone may subscribe to.
Yeah. So that's the part that needs continuous discussion, and in some ways it is their job to then push the ideas to the people, right? So that is for the STB to do it. So once again, STP, they want to introduce a non-open market flat mechanics, right? Essentially means that there's no more secondary resale market, right? You buy, sell direct through the HDB, and the price is compressed, right? All the way to pretty much a build cost plus a premium. So reference price is about 70,000 to a few hundred thousand, to like 100, 200,000, right? Depending on flat size. Any thoughts on this front?
Maybe we can allow some of that, but maybe not as universally all flats become like that, right? Because could be that kind of model or typology, whatever you call it, works well for some people, right? So
you actually think
in
that
other
is
words, we can always retain other models still,
Yeah.
working side by side,
Okay.
simultaneously.
So from your point of view, you think that there is space for something like that?
I believe so, and if there might be takers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But of course, they have to go in with their eyes open. They
Yeah.
can't sell in the open market.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
If they paid 200,000 for it, at the end, of course, they get something back, but won't be certainly not asset enhancement in any way.
So I guess it's a good reiteration that you're just renting lah.
Yeah.
Take away the
correct.
ownership and everything.
Yeah, so you have different models operating at the same time.
Okay, and you
Nothing
think
wrong with that.
and you think that it is okay for the HDB to move down this path?
I would say so.
From your
I would
point
say
of
so,
view.
yeah.
Okay, so in some sense we are maturing into multiple systems of
Yeah.
lift and flat types, right? Okay. So it's just a different model. There's no right or wrong. I mean, there's right or wrong based on your political positioning and your thought process, lah.
And whether currently you're owning the flat.
Yeah, and whether you're owning a flat, because the last thing you want is you own a flat and then there's a whole new supply of these type of flats that come in, and then they may inevitably distort the market, right? So not out of their design, which is what, once again, back to the triangle, right? Of the things that you want to achieve. But okay, that is very interesting. So there is one other thing that is I personally think is very interesting, which is the PSP's Millennial Apartment Scheme. So I don't think it's new to the psyche of Singaporeans, because by virtue that Leong Man Wai has a position in Parliament, he has sought multiple opportunities to kind of push this idea, right? And I do think that amongst the millennials and of course the younger people, it's quite a sexy idea, co-living. In simple terms, it is co-living, right? Like, it's like a cool place to rent and to just stay together, much like how co-living are, or even much like how dormitories, like school, university dormitories work, right? Then maybe you must do some community thing, collect points, then they can continue to stay, right? So you kind of like allow people to graduate out of that and into this new like millennial apartment scheme in the heart of the city centre. I do think there's some merit to this. Any thoughts from your point of view?
I think again, if there's another model, why not?
So different strokes for different folks.
exactly.
Like that. Okay. Yeah. So that
Actually, using the millennial as a naming convention is a bit wrong, right?
Right.
Because Gen Z right now, oldest is already 28.
Yeah.
It should really be a
Millennials
Gen Z
should be
now.
leave already. Yeah. So
exactly.
it's a Gen Z housing scheme. Yeah. No, because I think there is something to be said, especially I think in Taiwan they tested something like that. I cannot remember, was it Taichung or Taipei they tried. So because as with all big cities, not unique to Singapore, the city centre is always very expensive, right? And as much as our government tries to build flats and all that, to try to essentially avoid enclaves, lah, right? You don't want like rich enclaves. So you say like, okay, this circle, it'll be a public housing. But because there's a secondary market in the Singapore public housing system, right, very quickly the price just like shoot up once it 5-year NOP exit into the market, right? So now, okay, they're going to delay to 10 years, right? But once it enters the market, it still inevitably allow market forces to come in to kind of scoop up the prime area and then indirectly create enclaves, right? And you can see whether is it Duxton, whether is it, what's the other one? The newer one, nearer to Red Hill, that area, right? So it's all like the prices are just like woo, right? And when you go there, you see because they got viewing area, right? So I go and see them. Then I see the residents here. The way they talk, the very different pattern, like carry the cello with the kid. Oh, what we like to do today, that's like, okay, different group are here, right? The people live here differently, and by virtue of an open market system, you create such behaviors, right? So it is what it is. So when I thought about it, when I heard Man Wai talk about it, at first I was like, okay, just a rental scheme, right? But over time, as I think about it, maybe there's some areas that we can circle up, and we don't give the people too much time here. You don't want them to entrench. You give them like a 3-year, like max. You can.
It's a transition.
Yeah, it's like and then you're grinding your career, right? Right. So in the early days when you're grinding your career, you graduate out of university, they go here, they can do whatever that they need to do, and then young people can work until very late one, right? But then you don't want to go back to Punggol, right? Sorry, Singapore is very small, but Punggol is still very far, right? Or like Tampines, right? So then you just go back to your apartment and could potentially help TFL. Right, great place to meet a lot of people, right? And I see that in co-living spaces. I have friends that stay in co-living spaces, they are very connected. There are all sorts of people that they know from all sorts of, well, how you know them? Oh, we all stay in the co-living, oh. So we hang out, we chill, we chat, you know, and it's a very university dormitory energy that is translated into the heart of the city centre for young professionals, right? I do think that is viable.
Given your explanation, these things seem to solve quite a number of issues.
I'm not sure if it
Possibly.
ultimately does lah,
Yeah.
but in my imagination, like 很像可以咯.
It doesn't have to be even city center, right?
Yeah,
Could be,
doesn't have to be.
let's say, Boon Keng, a few stops
Yeah,
away from
yeah.
town. It's already good enough. It's a good
Exactly.
balance of cost to the government and whatnot.
And relative to space. And I mean, there's some of the older estates, right? Queenstown, Red Hill, some of these places, they also want rejuvenation, you know, and those young people can go in and rejuvenate, right? And, you know,
correct.
so I think that there are some possibilities as a transitionary,
Correct.
and also for people that want to like make the big decisions slightly later in
Yes,
life,
correct,
right? So I think it is a good time to explore some of these things.
I wanted to pick up on your point about after the MOP, then the city center HDB become enclave,
Yeah.
right? People can actually take comfort that the second-hand buyer into this are going to suffer worse lease decay than you.
Of course,
does
they
it make you
are.
happier?
Relatively.
Relatively happier.
Yeah. No, but they are the exit plan of the original people, right? And then to be fair, they also come in with their eyes wide open,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Because
They should,
You
yeah.
pay in the open market, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's still cheaper than going private.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
definitely.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the.
Huh?
I think that's the part of the imagination that wasn't
Right.
very well scoped out,
Correct.
you know, earlier. Because the intention is great, right? You think like, oh, you know, don't want all the condo here, you know, let's do some HDB flat. Then who knows, right? The buyer profile thinks like, hey, wow, the condo there 3 million, this one 1.5, let's go.
Yeah.
I need to declare conflict. I stay in Pinnacle.
Yeah.
Justin.
So yeah, exactly. I was
Yeah,
referencing.
yeah,
I said that, yeah.
I was referencing the Pinnacle. I was up there. I brought some friends up there, see the view. Then I take the lift. I was like, wow, everybody here very sophisticated.
Important
The
question,
way
are you
they
the
talk.
first buyer or second
buyer.
buyer?
Yeah. First, okay, it's okay. So
And
people-
intend to live until the end, right? So to me, the price of 1.5 million for my neighbor doesn't matter, right? Yeah, I'm not going to cash out. I cash out, where do I stay?
Yeah. Fair. Exactly. Okay.
I think that's the reason why people also buy those $1 million house or HDB, right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you got good location, good view.
Yeah.
Come on. Where can you get in private?
Yeah. Exactly.
The same thing.
I mean, all the Bishan $1 million is all by the Bishan Park, so beautiful. Last time the Longkang, who want to stay? Right? Bishan Park used to be a Longkang, right? And it's so smelly. But after they build out the whole thing, then all the $1 million flats are along the parks, right? So I think that's a function of, if we as a nation continue to choose that our public housing scheme will have a secondary market in the resale flat, you know, all these mechanics are here to stay, right? And you try to like mix and match, try to manage it a little bit here and there. You know, I think the annoyance is still in not being able to hop on, and then maybe there's quite a big delay amongst a younger crowd, you know, plus COVID, plus everything. So I think that's why PAP still stands by their position to say that, oh, we want to build more flats. But to them, that is the solution, not changing the mix. Right, so ultimately it's for the voters to decide, you know, what works for you, what you think is interesting. Any last words for our listeners?
I think we also, I know this is something that's quite unpopular, which is to say that, you know, whatever we think about, whatever recommendation, we really need to think about the trade-offs. I know trade-offs are pretty inconvenient
Not
for
popular.
for discussion purposes, for, you know, among some people, right? But really, we have to consider that.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity cost, right?
I mean, it's very easy to say, okay, we just want to have free this, free that. You know, it can be done, but at what cost?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Any last thing?
I would still say continue to support the young people, let them have an opportunity to lock into this favorable long-term lease or long-term rent arrangement, and then after that they can build their life around that.
Awesome,
Right, yeah.
awesome. Okay, Adrian,
Great.
any last things?
I'm just very interested to see how this would evolve, and hopefully really for the younger people, they really have a choice to enter the market in a faster manner, in an affordable fashion, because contrast to my time where it was, this is not a problem in my time,
no,
but
it's not a
nowadays, and I really cannot imagine how it will be for my kids when they grow up.
Yeah,
It's
it's
gonna be
true.
tough.
It's true. And I think there's also a lot of the anxiety amongst the voters, right? When they think about, okay, I managed to do it, but now it looks a bit crazier. And then like my kids in another 10, 20 years now, it's going to be even crazier. Or at least that's how they extrapolate, right?
Yeah.
Of course, things are not linear, right? But based on what it is, you extrapolate your thought to look at it. So, oh, we have to do something now.
And
right?
another
So-
reason for people not to have kids.
Yeah. So, 环环相扣, everything is connected,
Yes,
right? So,
exactly.
had a great discussion.
I don't always think that everything remain equal. No? They're not.
Yeah. Things will change. Okay.
It's a lot of moving parts,
Yeah,
really.
There are. Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you,
Thank you so
Unser.
much.
Thank you, Alex. We had a great discussion. I really enjoyed today's panel. I think we handled some of the hard topics, that I'm sure the other podcasts cannot handle one. It's true. They all talk about this person, that person, right? So please share it with your loved ones, share it with the voters out there that are trying to make a decision. I think we had a very balanced discussion, objective view from a professional standpoint and from a lived experience standpoint. So yeah, let it roll. Let more people hear this, and we will republish these two podcasts that we recorded in the live over the course of the next week. So you can also share that podcast with your friends and family. So meanwhile, that's the end for today. We wish you well. I think next week onwards there'll be more and more candidates coming on. So you will get to hear from them, and if you have any hard-hitting questions, let us know. We will deliver it to them. Okay, meanwhile, thank you. We'll see
so
you.
much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Rally time. Time to go.